G'day, Smith here, and today I want to talk about why Google and your smartphone are making you retarded. I want to perform a little test, but beforehand I need you to put your phone somewhere you can't see it, or if you're watching on a phone or tablet, maximize the video. Yeah, okay, now that you've done that, without looking at an electronic device for help, do you know what the time and date is? Probably. Do you know what direction north is? Possibly. How many phone numbers do you know off by heart besides your own? Do you know the phone numbers of your parents or any loved ones by heart at all? Maybe. Can you figure out a simple math equation like, for example, 642 minus 153? Now, you're probably wondering, what the fuck is this dickhead talking about? What's the point of this? I'm not in school and I do have access to my smartphone for bullshit like that. Well, just a couple decades ago, if you wanted to call someone, you would have to remember their phone numbers so you could call them from payphones in emergencies. People wouldn't have calculators in their pocket everywhere they went and would have to do mental math on a regular basis. Shocking, I know. If you wanted to go for a walk or a drive somewhere, you needed to know how to get there and know how to read a map and orientate yourself in case you got lost. Before watches, you had to keep mental track of the time and tell the time of day from the sun and the shadows and the date from the stars. As for phone numbers, a study by Kaspersky Lab, which is a Russian antivirus giant, showed that the majority of people could phone their home when they were 10 years old, but now half of them couldn't even call their own kids or call their work without looking up the number. A third couldn't even call their spouse. 1 in 3 are happy to forget information they can find online. When asked a question, 36% of people would turn to the internet before trying to remember, and a quarter would forget an online fact as soon as they had used it. Kaspersky Labs term this digital amnesia, and older generations suffer it too. When separated from their phones, it would cause people immense anxiety and distress, particularly among women and younger people, of course. 44% of women and 40% of 16 to 24-year-olds said they'd be in strife because they keep all their memories on their phones, all their photos and whatnot, and they'd be lost forever. 25% of women and 38% of younger respondents said they would panic. Their phones are the only place they store images and contact information. Your brain is a muscle and therefore must be exercised and trained in order to keep your mind sharp. When your mobile phone dies, would you be able to answer any of the simple questions I asked you earlier? And yes, they were simple. There has been a great dumbing down of humans, to such an extent that I would say we've regressed mentally and physically, almost comparable to the degeneration of the European wolf to the domesticated dog. Let me explain. All humans used to have to hunt or gather to survive. The drive to be more efficient and to reduce hard labour led to humans creating work-reducing tools, from sharpened rocks to spades to ploughs to tractors. Pre-industrial revolution, everyone but a small minority worked in agriculture. Now it's reversed. Only a small minority work on farms, and yet we still have an abundance of food. In this march of technological progress, many jobs and tasks have been eliminated. Horse-drawn carriages were replaced by taxis and horse-drawn carts by ploughs and tractors. Slowly, taxi drivers are being replaced by self-driving cars, powered by Google and Uber. Human checkout chicks and cashiers have been replaced by automated self-serve checkouts. This can be seen in your local grocers, fast food restaurants, and many other industries. The encyclopedia was replaced by Google. The knowledge and invaluable information that was contained therein was made redundant by search engines. Google in particular is responsible for a huge amount of the dumbing down of the average person. In 2012, an experiment was performed, link in the description, where people were asked to type an assortment of random trivia facts into a document. One half were told their work would be saved, and the other half were told that it would be erased. And so the participants told their work would not be saved, remembered far more than the ones who trusted the technology to remember for them. The way that people remember information is changing from our overuse of search engines. We retain fewer facts and knowledge, but we can remember where to find the information. The study called this the Google effect. How did we ever live without technology? It seems so tedious to have to go through encyclopedias just to find a simple fact. Well, even before the advent of the internet, there was a similar effect taking place in humanity. What the fuck is he talking about, I hear you saying? Well, Tacitus, an ancient Roman scholar, noted that Germanics and Scandinavians in the pre-Viking era had access to technology of books, but they didn't want to use them. Why? Well, they thought that writing things down in books would blunt their memory. Can you see where I'm going with this here? They weren't primitive. They intentionally resisted this innovation and they didn't need books. They could remember everything themselves. They used oral tradition where the knowledge was passed down from one generation to the next. Long verses and stories would be word by word memorized, and people would be incapable of this now. Necessity breeds innovation, which at first seems like it would be a good thing, but as we choose to rely more and more on technology, we need even more of it to sustain our lifestyle. Technology is created because we need it, but the reason we need technology is because we as human beings are becoming more inferior as time goes by. Humans always try to make new things that will make things easier for ourselves, which is another way of saying we try to invent things so that we become even more useless and dependent. Electric windows on modern cars is a good example of this. How hard is it to open them manually? We ruin ourselves because we break down our minds and bodies with this too comfortable lifestyle. In the end, we will become completely dependent on this technology to survive, or maybe even to get up in the morning. We are unintentionally enslaving ourselves and giving the power of our lives into the hands of those that control the technology. And before you go down in the comments and say, "Oh, but you're using a computer to upload this video," I realise the irony that I've used a computer to create a video and upload it to a YouTube channel on the internet. I'm sure that if I was left alone in a forest for a couple days, I too wouldn't be able to survive. I'm domesticated like the majority of modern people. It used to be common knowledge what plants were edible and which were poisonous, and how they were prepared. Now hardly anyone would be able to forage for their food if put in a position where they had to. Baby steps are needed to make a change to how we use technology. Ask yourself, could you live without electricity? This would mean going without your lights, computers, television, radio, GPS, cell phone reception or any use of mobiles at all, traffic control, modern cars, the ability to fill the cars that do work with fuel, public transport, FPOS machines, your indoor lighting, your fridge, your microwave, your oven, your electric stove, your toaster, your kettle, tap water, dishwater, your washing machine, or your toilet. What happens when technology fails? Without electronics, modern life is essentially impossible. What would happen to society if everything electronic was suddenly unusable, if it was fried? How many people would survive if they suddenly had no access to running water, or a fridge to store their food, or a microwave to heat it? But this could never happen, right? This is the realm of fantasy. Wrong. It's happened before. On September 1st, 1859, a gigantic solar flare with the energy of 10 billion atomic bombs struck Victorian-era Earth in a catastrophe called the Carrington Event. Working much like an EMP, it caused telegraph communications around the world to fail. Sparks were flying from telegraph machines, setting the paper on fire, and the wiring on the machines melted. As a result, the Northern Lights, otherwise known as Aurora Borealis, were seen all the way down to Cuba, and the Southern Lights, Aurora Australis, were visible in Queensland, Australia. That wasn't the only solar storm that's hit Earth, however. On March 13th, 1989, yes, quite recently, there was a solar flare that took down a power station in Quebec, Canada. 6 million people had a blackout for 9 hours, costing a total of $6 billion in damages. Solar storm induced power surges, even melted transformers as far as New Jersey, USA. On July 23, 2012, there was a near miss of the Earth of a similar sized flare as the one in 1859. This would have caused global blackouts for potentially weeks or months. The solar storm hit where Earth would have been a week prior on its orbit. Maybe the Mayan 2012 doomsday predictions weren't so far off after all. This could happen anywhere without much notice. It's been predicted that there is approximately about a 12% chance of getting hit with a Carrington-level solar storm or worse in the next 10 years, which could cause a blackout for up to 2 years globally. Even smaller solar storms mess with airline flights and communications. Would you be prepared for a blackout that could last years as transformers and infrastructure are slowly repaired? Would you be able to even survive such an event with no fridges, grocery stores, or running water? Some steps will need to take place in order to prepare for this when it inevitably occurs. Yes, inevitably. So what does this all mean? Well, in an age where people take the car to sit on a bicycle going nowhere in a gym, it's easy to live life comfortably with all the technology at our fingertips. There's a reason people say, get out of your comfort zone. Being too comfortable makes people lazy, and laziness is one of the worst and most effective traits of mankind. So I challenge you, get out of your comfort zone. What can I do? You say. Well, limit the amount of time you spend on your phone and social media, for one, you bloody lemmings. Learn how to do things for yourself and avoid being reliant on electronic devices wherever possible. Avoid using the clock, the alarm, the calendar, the contacts list, and maps features on your phone. Try to memorize the information that you read in online articles. Minimize the amount of searches that you do on Google. Turn auto spell check off when typing in a computer and take notice of the errors so that you don't spell like a frickin' retard. Have your own veggie garden and collect rainwater if possible so you are somewhat self-sufficient. And next time you reach for your phone for something simple, go to type a question into Google or record important memories, be it through photographs or Snapchat or whatever the hell the kids use these days. Ask yourself, could I do this on my own? Could I answer this myself? Could I remember this on my own? Because you can't rely on your phone to work forever. Congratulations, cunts, if you've got through the whole video. I'm really surprised because I ramble on like a motherfucker. Anyway, that's all for today. Till next time, take it easy, mates.